Xiao Yan landed in Canaan City, and then, with the curious faces of the people around him, he took out the Canaan College student badge that Hodder had given him before, and after wearing it on his chest, he strode into the envious and shocked eyes of passers-by and walked out. Turning around a spacious street paved with blue stones appeared in front of you. The flow of people was so turbulent that people couldn't help but be stunned. At both ends of the street, there were various vendors and tall buildings lined up row upon row. Arranged in the city, it looks extremely simple and clear. This Canaan city alone is far more prosperous and popular than the imperial capital of the Gama Empire. It is worthy of being the most prestigious academy on the Dou Di continent. Xiao Yan couldn't help but feel a little nostalgic in his eyes. In his previous life, he had also been here. Looking at the familiar streets, Xiao Yan sighed deeply and then murmured, "When you have some free time, let's take Shuner to have some fun in Canaan City." In the last life, because of a blood feud, even though he came to Canaan College and met Shuner, he devoted most of his time to training. The two of them didn't spend much time together to develop feelings. Until Shuner left, the two never had a real date, which was considered a small regret. This time, the Yunlan sex matters have been resolved in advance. I had foresight and prepared everything so I could make up for the regrets in my previous life. Without staying too much on the street, Xiao Yan followed the route and walked quickly in the direction of Canaan College based on his memory on the street. After about 20 minutes, he saw a simple and thick door, full of a sense of age. The door appeared in front of Xiao Yan. The corners of his mouth raised slightly, with a hint of a smile. Xiao Yan walked quickly towards the gate of Canaan College. As a major event of Canaan College, the intercourt selection competition naturally attracts a lot of attention, and those students who are very dazzling in daily life will also participate in it one after another, showing off their strength and attracting the attention of large numbers of admirers. And there are also many students who are usually unknown, but they have turned into dark horses and become a blockbuster, leaving behind legends. Although the college had already prepared the largest square in the college as a backup for this purpose, it still could not stop the enthusiastic students. The square has long been packed with people, and as far as the eye can see, there was a black mass of human heads, and from time to time there were deafening cheers. However, people's joys and sorrows are not the same. Some people are happy and some are worried. On the corner of the high platform, a girl in Qing Yi defeated her opponent and came off the stage. She trotted here and said with a smile, "Cousin Xiao Yu." Xiao Yu, who was wearing a lavender dress, walked over with a bit of a smile and said, "Shuner, you are really getting better and better. If you continue like this, entering the inner court will be a certainty." The two women exchanged a few words, and then, with the somewhat hesitant look on Shuner's face, she lowered her voice and came to Xiao Yu's side and said, Cousin Xiao Yu, Brother Xiao Yan, haven't you come yet?" Shuner's eyes swept over Tutor Rulin on the side. Although the latter had a gentle smile on his face, the anxious look between his eyebrows could not be faked. After hearing Shuner's words, Xiao Yu also put away his happy expression, sighed, curled his lips, and whispered, "Not yet, and I don't know what this guy is doing. He promised to take a 1-year vacation, but in the end, there has been no news for more than 2 years." Hearing Xiao Yu's words, Shuner couldn't help but bite her red lips. If Xiao Yan didn't show up this time, not only would he himself be removed, but even Rulin, the mentor who had guaranteed him for leave, might also be implicated, and within a few years, there is no hope of promotion. Instructor Rulin also added Xiao Yan's name to the list for this competition because of her hard work. Through Ling Ying, Shuner naturally knew that Xiao Yan successfully won the 3-year contract and suppressed the Yunlan set. Judging from the time, Xiao Yan would definitely have time to rush to Canaan College from the Gama Empire and still have a lot of spare time. But now, even Shuner felt a little unsure about whether Xiao Yan could really make it to the academy and participate in the inter-academy trials. But while they were still communicating in low voices, the referee's rough voice resounded in the huge square. With the spread of Dou Qi, it spread so that everyone present could hear it. In the next match, Sui Beng from Zhuangjie Class 3 will fight against Xiao Yan from Huangjie Class 2. After hearing these words, the square that was noisy just now suddenly became quiet for a moment, and then the noise started up. The name Xiao Yan can be said to be like thunder to the students of Cannon College. At this moment, countless eyes were directed from the seats of Huangjie Class 2 from various places on the stage. Ha ha ha! I did not expect that the people in Huangjie 2 class still refused to learn their lessons. They suffered a loss last year and they have to sign up for Xiao Yan this year. I think that kid Xiao Yan is probably scared, so he does not dare to come to the academy.
Because he knows that he's not worthy of Shuner at all. That's right. Don't even look at who he is. He has such a big face. For a time, countless discussions broke out, making everyone in the second class of Huangjie look embarrassed. Shuner clenched her fists tightly and bit her red lips, while Xiao Yu looked a little worried and guilty. Looked at Tutor Rulin aside. Just when everyone thought that the scene from last year would be repeated today, a clear voice sounded faintly, "Sorry, I'm late." After the words fell, a sound broke through the air suddenly, and everyone's eyes were attracted. They saw a figure in a black robe lightly jump from the stage and then landed lightly on the stage. Shuner's eyes suddenly condensed, and then she stared at the figure that suddenly appeared. She breathed a sigh of relief and said with a hint of excitement, "He came." After hearing Shuner's words, instructors Xiao Yu and Rulin quickly looked towards the square and saw a thin young man in black robes standing on the square. With Xiao Yan's appearance, not far in front of him, the figure holding a steel spear suddenly opened his eyes, and a ray of light burst out from it with some inexplicable emotions. Looking at the ordinary young man in front of him, Shuo Bang raised the corners of his mouth with a bit of hostility and said in a low voice, "You? Is that Xiao Yan?"
"If I don't change my name, I will be Xiao Yan." Xiao Yan's words fell lightly. He didn't take Shui Beng in his eyes with a hint of hostility in front of him. In other words, everyone present was just relying on their strength. No one would be taken seriously by Xiao Yan. After seeing the black-clothed figure on the square admitting his identity, the noise in the stands suddenly became much louder. There are many of them, all with a bit of sour meaning. That kid is Xiao Yan. He doesn't look very good. Is he the only one? What's the point of worrying about a turtle who has taken 2 years' leave? Junior sister, Shanger, look at me. If I were the dean of the college and had been absent from school for 2 years, I would have kicked him out of the college long ago. What a big arrogance. Who does he think he is? What a big face. Haha, I hope he won't be defeated by Shui Beng as soon as he comes up. Then I'm afraid countless people will be disappointed. For a time, countless voices filled with ridicule, jealousy, hostility, and dissatisfaction came from the stands. But Xiao Yan did not react at all, because he knows that when he truly shows his crushing strength, all dissatisfied voices will be completely suppressed. In Dou Di continent, the strong are respected, and whoever has the biggest fist is the right. And in Canaan Academy, the rules that are common on this continent are naturally also common. Looking lightly at Shui Bang, who was slightly hostile to him, Xiao Yan raised the corners of his mouth with a gentle smile and then spoke lightly and said, "Give you a chance. Take action first." After hearing Xiao Yan's words, Shui Bang's originally hostile face became even more aggravated, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. I've been thinking about how outstanding the people she could like would be, but now it seems that he is just an arrogant clown. After hearing his words, Xiao Yan did not move, but directly put one hand behind his back and waved the other hand toward Shui Bang casually. Seeing Xiao Yan's actions, Shui Bang's face was as cold as ice. He immediately grasped the spear made of pure steel and pointed it at Xiao Yan from a distance.
Gently adjusted his sleeves, appearing calm and at ease. Madness! Everyone unanimously came to a common understanding of Xiao Yan's current behavior, but the next moment, this understanding was immediately broken.
Facing Xu Bang's menacing attack, Xiao Yan took his time and just stretched out a finger and pointed it at the incoming spear. A heart-wrenching sound of gold and iron clashing suddenly sounded, and in an instant, a dazzling spark burst out from the fine iron spear and Xiao Yan's fingers, splashing a distance of more than 10 feet. The stands that were still noisy suddenly became quiet. Everyone, whether they were hostile to Xiao Yan or those who were worried about Xiao Yan, saw a scene that they would never forget in their lifetime. I saw the tip of Xiao Yan's right finger gently pointing out and landing in front of the tip of the spear. With just one finger, the spear could not make any progress. How can this be? Xu Bang's face turned red. He couldn't accept that his full blow was received by Xiao Yan with such a relaxed posture. With the fierce heart, he increased his strength again, using all his strength to suck the milk, but the fine iron spear was still lying in front of him, making no progress. "I gave you a move, now it's my turn," Xiao Yan chuckled, and then his fingers were slightly bent, and then a finger mixed with Baji Bang and energy suddenly popped out. Ka-cha! Under the stunned gaze of everyone, the spear made of fine iron suddenly exploded inch by inch under Xiao Yan's bullet, and Xu Bang even groaned and was knocked back by the huge force. The force of resistance retreated several dozen steps and then stopped. The huge strength gap between the two made everyone stunned for a while. Then from the stands, an old voice appeared with a little doubt and shock. "Doling?" After the words fell, there was suddenly a silence in the stands. People who had doubts about Xiao Yan all closed their mouths one after another, not daring to say anything anymore, and lowered their heads, for fear that Xiao Yan would be targeting them. "Haha, can we declare the winner?" Xiao Yan raised his head and looked at the referee team on the high platform, who also announced hurriedly, "Yang Ji Class 2, Xiao Yan Sheng." After hearing the words, Xiao Yan walked slowly down the square and looked at the corner of the stands. A beautiful figure that haunted him was right there. On a special stand, several old men dressed in white were sitting, and one could tell at a glance that their status was high. An old man rubbed his forehead and said with a bit of surprise and exhaustion, "This Xiao Yan actually has a fighting spirit level?" On the side, another elder nodded and said with some complexity, "It's true. That Xu Bang is at the peak of 8-star fighting."
Master. Although any great fighting master can easily defeat him like this, it's like an adult beating a child, which is still far behind. A gray-haired man whose status was obviously higher than the others scratched his head and said immediately, "Where is the intelligence department? Haven't you found out the news about Xiao Yan yet?" He is the vice president of Canaan College, Hu Qian. After hearing his words, an old man thought and immediately took out a scroll from the Na Jie, put it on the table, and explained, "The news just came this morning and I haven't had time to process it yet." Before he could finish speaking, Hu Qian took the scroll in his hand and opened it eagerly. On it, the recent situation of the Jama Empire was densely written, and among them there was a name that attracted quite a lot of attention. Xiao Yan. The more he watched the deeds above, Hu Qian's hands trembled slightly unconsciously, and his eyes became brighter and brighter. After a long time, he spread out the scroll in his hand and laughed. "Okay, now our outer courtyard has a real genius."
At the edge of the square, Shuebang's face was ashen. Although he did not suffer any substantial damage, looking at the broken spear in his hand and the back of Xiao Yan leaving gracefully, a touch of bitterness and chill slowly rose from his heart. "I failed. Ever since I was admitted to the hospital and caught a glimpse of that beautiful figure, I had been working hard for it for 2 years, but in the end I failed. Even there is no way to fight back. In this life, it is difficult to meet the expectations of catching up with the other party. A strong fighting spirit under the age of 20, even if placed in the inner courtyard of Canaan Academy, is probably the best among the best." The young man in black robe slowly walked out of the square. The neat and wrinkle-free robe on his body looked quite calm, as if he had never experienced a battle just now. So strong. In the stands, Xiao Yu and others opened their mouths slightly, and Man Lan looked at the square in astonishment, staring closely at the thin figure of Go. They did not expect that he was very powerful in the outer courtyard. Xuebeng, who was quite famous, was defeated by Xiao Yan in one move. This guy's progress has been too fast in the past 2 years. How did he practice so well? Hearing Tutor Wolin's teasing, even Suner felt shy and a blush appeared on her cheeks. Then he turned his gaze to Xiao Yu and chuckled. Instructor Wolin on the side also slowly recovered from the shock. After the words fell, Xiao Yan made a move that made the entire Canaan Academy outer courtyard stunned. He directly opened his arms and took the initiative to hug the lovely girl. Feeling the temperature in his arms and the familiar delicate body, Xiao Yan took a deep breath and smelled the familiar smell. With a hint of teasing, he put his head next to Suner's ear and spoke in a voice that only the two of them could hear. The voice spoke quietly. This is what most of them think. Today is destined to be. And said calmly. The two of them coughed slightly in unison, and Xiao Yan also noticed the two of them, touched his head, and said with a sneer with a little embarrassment, "Think I didn't? In this life, I swear, no matter what, I will protect you and never let you suffer any more injustice." Xiao Yan walked along the passage towards the bleachers, walking slowly and without any concealment. Following his pace, everyone moved away in unison as he passed, not daring to stop him. Soon, a smooth pedestrian passage appeared. This prickly student who had been absent for 2 years actually defeated Xuebeng, who was well known in the academy, with a snap of his fingers using extremely violent methods in front of everyone. Recalling Xiao Yan's previous demeanor, Instructor Wolin asked herself, even she would not be Xiao Yan's opponent now. The young man who had spent 20 rounds in his hands and wanted to take a leave of absence was now far ahead of him. He is really a genius. No, he should be a monster. No wonder he makes you dream about Suna. If he can attract you even if he is so outstanding, I will suspect that Suna, you like women instead of men. Hey, Tutor Wolin, long time no see.
Sorry, Sunar, I'm Lotte.
Of course I have, Brother Xiao Yan, let me go. Along the passage, Xiao Yan walked slowly over. Looking at the smiling girl in green, he felt a little warm in his heart. Thinking of how much she had sacrificed for him in her previous life, silently supporting him no matter where and when, a touch of excitement emerged in Xiao Yan's heart. In the corner of the stands, a young man in white robes, with an unwilling look on his face, stared at Xiao Yan on the square. After a long time, he sat down dejectedly, holding his head in his hands without saying a word. Just this moment made Bai Shan realize the reality. I am afraid that he is far from being Xiao Yan's opponent. Not far away on the other side, a woman in a red dress gritted her teeth. Unwillingly, with an expression of dissatisfaction on her face, and kept muttering to herself, how is it possible? He's just a stinky man. How can he be so strong? And Hu Qian didn't show off. Instead, he pushed out the scroll in his hand, threw it into the center of the table, and said with a bit of sadness, "Since you are curious, open it and see for yourself."